Welcome to The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show here on Channel 1 Television. On The Point of View, we get the right guests, ask them relevant questions on issues that matter to you. Tonight, we'll be talking about the troubled D-Levy. It has a long name, the Energy Sector Shortfall and Debt Repayment Levy. It's been in the works, was introduced in Parliament, some people thought too quickly, was scheduled for a June 9 implementation, postponed to today, the 16th of June. Now we're told it's been suspended. What on earth is going on? The government says it's the Iran-Israel crisis. Tonight, you have a panel of 4 to delve into the matter. Stay with us.
Persistent bad breath could indicate gum disease. I'm Tanya from Bethel Dental Clinic, Ghana. Did you know that gum disease is a common cause of bad breath or halitosis? But there is hope. As dental hygienists, one of the main things we do when you come for your periodic visits is to examine your gum health by completing a periodontal assessment. Gingivitis, the early stage of gum disease, is common and characterized by swollen, bleeding gums and halitosis. The good news is that gingivitis can be reversed back to healthy gum tissue. Regardless of which stage is present, a professional cleaning or deeper cleanings are needed as a first step to treating halitosis or bad breath. So, schedule your appointment with your hygienist now to learn more about maintaining healthy gums and getting rid of bad breath.
Healthy smile. Remember who we are singing now. At risk of prostate enlargement. We a member or her 20 ebitimi prostate cancer, 5 bitimi afamu na dia obefamu.
Actually, this is not my fault.
And to wada, entina medi mani Executive Prostate Center.
Executive Prostate Center is a unique medical center where we harmonize in-depth traditional medicine with cutting-edge science and technology to cure, to treat, and to prevent diseases like prostate enlargement, prostate cancer.
Executive Prostate Center, Madame Home, facilities no, any professional medical care.
Sisi a bibia clear system no. Ye nro ne so de natural. Into we koso afama ye.
Executive Prostate Center, my cured.
Welcome back. So tonight we are asking, what is the fate of the D-Levy? I guess you can call it a troubled levy because it's not really set off. Initially, it was set to be implemented on the 9th of June, which was a week ago, postponed to today, the 16th. Now we're told it's been suspended. I'll be speaking first to the MP for Efija Kwabre North, who happens to be a former Deputy Minister of Energy. He's been very vocal about this. He says the whole thing doesn't make sense. He believes that it was rushed through Parliament and it's not fair to Ghanaians. Later, I'll be joined by the Deputy Minister for Energy, who will be telling us why the government has taken the position it did. We'll follow up with 2 industry people. But I'd like to remind viewers of what has been said about this levy. So let me take you to an interview I had with the Minister for Energy on radio a week and a half ago. He was explaining why Parliament needed to pass this particular bill to allow for a 1 cedi per litre for petroleum. Here are excerpts of that conversation. Hello, Honorable Jinafo. Are you there? This is the phone, no?
I'm there.
You're here. Okay. So we're having a mini debate here. I'm trying to understand what you and how long you will collect that money, because you gave us a specific figure as to how much you want to, how long you will collect that money, because you gave us a specific figure as to how much you want to collect. But there doesn't appear to be a sunset clause in what your colleague finance minister presented in parliament.
Exactly so.
So why not?
Forgive me, my voice. Am I clear?
Yes,
now?
you are clear. So why no sunset clause?
Yes, so what we have done is that we are putting in place some measures. This is an arrangement we've put in place, but we'll keep monitoring the economy. We'll keep monitoring the performance. Don't forget, fuel prices have dropped from about 16. Even with this current 1 cedi, we should be around 12 cedi, which means that you still have a reduction of about 4 cedi. And so what we are doing now is that in the price build-up of the electricity tariff, liquid fuels are not part of the tariff structure. Then what we call reserve margin or capacity is not also part of the tariff structure. If we are to put all that on electricity, then you'll be talking about over 50%. That would be too much. But that would have been the realistic and normal decision to take. But as a government, you have to weigh a lot of options. And we believe that with the recent decrease in petroleum products vis-a-vis the exchange rate performance, this should be a less impactful measure in terms of the hit on Ghanaians, so that we can still sustain and provide electricity to the people of Ghana whilst we take steps to deal with the other issues. It's a governance decision.
Well, for a couple of things, you are very clear on how much the debts you need to pay are, right? And therefore, you calculated 1 cedi per liter. Why don't you also tell us when you will stop collecting it? Because the history of this country is that every time an energy sector levy is imposed to pay a debt, more often than not, it never ends.
Clarify this quickly. This amount, if you look at the object, clearly, we talk about the debt, where we are, and how unsustainable the debt is. But when you look at the real object, it's to help us procure critical fuels, i.e., liquid fuels. And we give the bill of the liquid fuel to be about 1.2 billion. And government says that this 1 cedi would give us about 5 to 6 billion, which is about 60% or 50% of what we require. And so even with this 1 cedi, the finance minister would have to still help us to get some additional money to buy liquid fuels. And so this amount does not necessarily deal with the debt, but to help us procure liquid fuels. As for the debt, we are taking steps. We are renegotiating with the IPPs. We are having a payment plan with them so that we stop the bleeding first, reduce the inefficiencies, and turn the sector around. But now we have an immediate challenge, which is how to get liquid fuels in order to continue to sustain the power. So this money effectively helps us to buy liquid fuel.
But in the statement, the finance minister, he also said some of it was going to clear existing debt, correct?
That is the whole levy. Because don't forget that there was a levy before this 1 cedi. And because of the liquid fuels, the existing levy does not help us now to clear the debt. So if we get this to help us with liquid fuel, then part of that levy, which is the existing levy, would help us to clear the debt. So for the sake of clarity, when we say paying the debt, it means that the total energy sector levies.
So, welcome back. Minister Jenapo said there are two main reasons. We need to procure fuel, and we also need to pay some energy sector debts. Hence the name Energy Sector Shortfall and Debt Repayment Levy. Now, MP for Fija Kwabre North, who I believe is one of the critical committees in Parliament, he's actually a deputy ranking member on the Energy Committee. He says this thing was rushed. He doesn't think it makes sense. Honorable, thanks for joining us. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Are you saying that as deputy ranking member of the Energy Committee, you did not see at all the memorandum for this law you are calling the D-Levy?
Well, let me say good evening to yourself and your viewers. I only got to see the memorandum after the speaker had referred the bill to the Committee on Finance. And indeed, when it was referred to the Committee on Finance, they had to take the leadership of our side to prompt the speaker that if not for anything at all, once it is related to energy matters, the leadership of the Energy Committee should be included in the referral. Now, let me also say that this came under a certificate of urgency, as you know. And initially, on the order paper, this particular bill was not on the original order paper. It was after we were almost at the tail end of the conversation of the day that the order paper addendum was circulated. It was at that point that we got to know that this particular bill was coming to Parliament. And so the first time I saw the memorandum was when, as leaders on the energy side, we were asked to join the Finance Committee for an emergency meeting to consider this particular bill.
All right. Let me talk to the substantive Deputy Minister and come back to you for responses. Honorable Richard Jan Mensah is MP, I believe, for Gomoa West, and also the Deputy Minister for Energy, with a background in the petroleum sector, so you should know a thing or two about this. Honorable Jan Mensah, thanks for joining us. Good evening.
Good evening, Bernard.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. The Deputy Ranking Member for the Energy Committee says they were not properly consulted before this law was even passed in Parliament. So ab initio, he thinks it was rushed. The minority have also raised many issues about this. They say it's unfair. They say it's worse than the E-Levy. Remind us again why government thought this was a good levy to approve.
Thank you, Bernard. On the issue of the minority not being consulted, I think the deputy ranking member obviously knows that before a bill is introduced to Parliament, the committee will be engaged. However, in terms of the timing, as to whether they were given ample timing for engaging them, that I think this was a bill that was introduced under a certificate of urgency. So obviously it will not enjoy the luxury of the usual period that a bill has to go through. And I must say that they were actually consulted.
So when the two committees met, was it unanimous or majority decision that approved this?
I must say, for that meeting, I wasn't in the meeting. But obviously, it would be, they would actually resist. They try to resist, obviously, to come out as a majority decision, I guess, because, as I said, even when the bill was introduced in Parliament, my brother knows that I was out of the country, even though I was monitoring. But it was introduced under a certificate of urgency on majority decision.
Be that as
which means that they opposed it.
Wonderful. Be that as it may, the fact that you postponed the implementation from June 9 to June 16 on the basis of the complaint from the Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies does suggest some level of speed, because initially you were to implement on the 9th and then you postponed to today, the 16th. Of course, we know that it's no longer happening this week, but you need to consider that in itself, the fact that the oil marketing companies did not feel ready to implement suggests some level of haste, correct?
So, Bernard, I must say that at least you know that I've worked in the industry before. And once the bill is passed, this is not the first time such a bill is passed. I remember vividly in 2014, December, when the special petroleum levy was passed. It actually went through similar arrangements. However, the concerns of the oil marketing companies within the period when the implementation, because it comes with some financial responsibility from their parts. That is how to raise the necessary bank guarantees or raise the necessary cash to be able to give upfront. pay upfront, whether you have a bank guarantee, you have insurance bond, or you have to pay cash for this, because they are doing the collection on behalf of government, and they also have a responsibility. But their concerns was such that they didn't even know the arrangement. So we thought it was needful that we actually come up with a structure that would be able to support their work. So it was, personally, I think the step taken, which was taken by the finance minister, I actually commended him for that step, because there was a need for us to make sure that their concerns is well taken into consideration. And this shows clearly the position of government. Even though government has brought this, government is not in haste to actually push the thing onto Ghanaians, even when it may have some consequential effect on the either the consumer or the industry. So we have introduced it. It's a very good law that we have introduced, and I think that my brother also agrees that the 1 cedi that we have introduced to help us have a very robust energy sector is something that we should all embrace. I know he may actually kick against it because of pressure from party or for political expediency. But if we intend to introduce this, and some quarters, because industry itself was not against the 1 cedi. DS has to do with the implementation and how it's going to affect their operation, and which we considered. Fast forward, I think the discussion is, I was with my brother, and we even discussed this over the weekend, even before, because I was with him in Calgary, Toronto, and this thing came up. We were discussing when we're looking at the international price and then how things are going. So quickly, the finance minister issued a communique to hold the implementation, even though they have earlier communicated that 16th the levy should be implemented. By looking at the market trends, especially over the last few days, the happenings in Iran and then Israel, it actually gave, if you look at the outlook, it actually posted that the international prices are going up. However, whenever international prices is projected to go up, it doesn't necessarily mean that immediately it actually has immediate implication. It may take time for it to actually reflect in the markets. So we thought that we have to study the markets, because we have already communicated that we are going to bring this 1 cedi, and it shouldn't have any adverse impact on consumers or industry. So when we decided to study the market and make sure that, okay, at this point it would be very ideal for us to push it in, or at this point we have to hold it on, and that is exactly what government is just trying to be very responsive and sensitive to the market, and that is why we held it at this point.
Let me ask your colleague what problem he has with that, because this morning I heard him on the radio say that the idea that the NDC government is even citing international developments to justify anything for him is laughable, because he was making reference to the Ukraine-Russia war, that in opposition the NDC did not agree when MPP used that. So let me just understand his point before I ask that question. Honorable Adomako, I think I heard you this morning make a point like that on our news. If you can clarify, so are you saying that at no point should government use international developments to justify domestic policy decisions? What were you really trying to say?
Well, Bernard, before I go there, I just want to clarify some few points that my colleague made. First of all, he said that we were consulted. That is not true, and the records should reflect same. The only time I saw the memorandum to the bill was when we were rushed to have a meeting with the finance committee. If you recall, even on the floor of Parliament, the minority leader, Honorable Afenyo Markin, did indicate that such bills normally will go through a certain process, and that he was even surprised to have seen it on the other paper addendum. So yes, when you talk about it being hastily done, you are spot on. We were not consulted. Myself as a deputy ranking member and my ranking member were not consulted on the bill before we saw it for the first time on the floor. even at the committee. So let's clarify that. Even the position of the GPRTU indicates clearly that they were not consulted. A lot of consultation did not go on with this particular bill, and I think we should be very frank with it. Now, the point you made about happenings all over the world, we don't live in an island, and my position still remains that international happenings can have effect on our local economies. And that is why during our time, we did indicate that the Russian-Ukraine war, COVID, and all those international happenings were having a toll on our economy. My colleague, my friend, and his colleagues at the time were not prepared to listen to us. And so I was just surprised that within 6 months, the narrative has changed. And now they are telling us that Iran and Israel's situation is having an effect on our fuel situation. Our position has still been, we are very consistent. We believe that, yes, what is happening in Iran and Israel can have effect on our local economy. And we've maintained that position.
Yeah, but Collins, I think the confusion is that for NDC government, they are saying because of the development in the Middle East, they are suspending something that many consumers may consider adverse to them. In your case, you cited Russia-Ukraine to justify the policies that you were implementing, which people did not like. So I think, don't you think you should be commending them? Because they are rather saying, because of what's happening globally, we are rather going to wait. You did not do that.
But I don't think we are speaking at cross purpose. I mean, we are making the same point. If you recall, their point was that they just did not understand why we should use Russian-Ukraine war, and even COVID, the situation with COVID, to justify the economic problem that we had encountered at that time. And so my point is that I am still principled. I think that global issues can have effects on our local economies, just as it's happening now. And the point is that they are now accepting the position we have already made, that whatever happens in the world, because we are not living on an island, it can also have an effect on them. Yes.
Let me find out from the Deputy Minister his response to that. So, Deputy Minister, in opposition, you didn't think we should cite international developments. Now in government, you are citing international developments. What's your comment?
So, in our case, we are looking at the situation, and we just said we want to monitor and see the effects of the conflicts on the market before implementing the levy. In their case, they had actually allowed whatever they intended to implement, either be E-levy, and they didn't also look at the circumstances that would come from the Russia-Ukraine or something, but they went ahead. They didn't look at the circumstances. In our case, we are being careful and monitor the system before we implement the tax or the levy that we have at hand. So it is two things altogether. We acknowledge that the conflict may have some impact on the price, either now or into the future. So we want to see how it impacts before we also know the next step to take. We don't want to actually go ahead with a levy, and let's say tomorrow the prices go so high, even far beyond what we met around 17 cities, and we've also applied 1 city. I think we'll know at that point we'll actually do Ghanaians a much more disservice. So I think the approach taken by government is in the right direction for us to monitor, even though now we are losing so much. What we think that if we had implemented it today, within the next few days, in about a month, it have actually given government close to a little more than even 500 million Ghana cedis to support our energy sector. But with this, we have to actually take the bullet and then hold and see how the market actually.
So finally, how long are you prepared to wait? Because you yourself and the minister said this was for 2 reasons: to pay energy sector debts and to procure fuel to prevent doomsday. We don't know how long Iran and Israel will keep doing their thing. So are you going to wait indefinitely? And in the meantime, how are you going to keep procuring fuel to power our plants?
So obviously, before we introducing this levy, even though it has been very difficult on the government's budget, we've always tried to get the fuels. But it's actually put a lot more burden on us. That is why this levy was being introduced. In this instance, government is still monitoring the markets. Even from what we have from today, I've seen that by tomorrow, prices that are going to come up, we would look at how the market actually turns out to be. If it's still, we see it going down, we would introduce it. It is possible that government can even introduce the levy by tomorrow, looking at how the market fares. If it is such that maybe the market doesn't support it, government will also know the next step to take. So at this point, we've suspended it to monitor the market.
Thank you. Let me end this segment with the former deputy minister. So some people feel like the MPP's opposition is a bit too aggressive because the government has actually suspended the implementation of a levy, which they say is, they are listening as against the e-levy that people said they didn't want and your government went ahead to implement. So at the least, you should be commending the government instead of criticizing them. What do you have to say?
I think probably they are not listening to themselves. Because if you go back to the budget, and Bernard, I think I would like to refer you to paragraph 264, both 263 and 264. And with your permission, I would like to read what the minister said. He said, Mr. Speaker, this is 263. Government assumed the liability and debt service obligation of ESLA PLC following the bond closure program and subsequent liquidation of ESLA PLC as a result of the domestic debt exchange program, DDEP. Now 264. Consequently, without increasing the levy, and that's the catchword, without increasing the levy, we will also review the Energy Sector Levies Act to consolidate the Energy Debt Recovery Levy, Energy Sector Recovery Levy, and Sanitation and Pollution Levy into one levy and use the proceeds to cater for the energy sector shortfalls and service the inherited debt service obligation. This is what they told us in Parliament. If somebody is not listening, then they are not listening to themselves. This is what they told us, that they do not intend to increase the levy. Indeed, Bernard, the memorandum that accompanied the initial bill that was passed in April, right after the budget was read, also indicated that they intend to consolidate the energy sector levies, but they do not intend to increase. So if you come back after 3 months to increase, then you are not listening to yourself, not us. They are rather not listening to themselves. Okay. Because what they promised us in the budget and what they are telling us now is completely different.
Thank you, Honorable Collins Adumako Mensah and also Richard Jan Mensah. This is the point of view tonight. We're looking at the fate of the now christened D-Levy. It's actually a much longer name. Energy Sector Shortfall and Debt Repayment Levy. This is Act 1141 Amendment. When we come back, we'll speak to two independent people. We'll speak to, I call him Dr. Theo Achampong, who is an energy economist, to tell us what is the outlook? How long will the war last? Do we know what the effects of the oil price has been so far? And Duncan Amwa from the COPEC on whether the uncertainty about when it will be implemented will affect things. Stay with us.
Where to get polytank?
Oh, and you're fine.
Go straight.
No, I'm not left, right.
And that's right. Ghana na ye wono. So when you do more, and ye data. Who knows? I beg, na here. Me pe polytank at all. And you just come in here by you to be able to buy you. Oh, food to be here. Enjoy your cra.
Akuya bulambo customer. Emua.
Like they take to buy so. Go to the distributor and you give the original polytank. Polytank. You get a sound.
Polytank, Papananka Sankasa.
Imagine waking up to serenity every day, surrounded by nature's beauty and luxury at your fingertips in a gated estate you can be proud to call your home. Welcome to Western Villas, located at Ai Mensa, where our stunning homes redefine elegance. At Western Villas, each home is a masterpiece, designed with precision and love. From swimming pool, gym, playground, beautiful landscaped gardens and private balconies, making every day feel like a retreat. We also have executive plots for sale at McCarthy Hill, strategically located and offer unparalleled views, easy access to amenities, and endless possibilities for executive living. With just 5% deposit, you can reserve your space. Contact us today to learn more about our luxury homes at Mensa or executive plots at McCarthy Hill. Call us now on 0536 502295 or visit www.westernvillas.com for more information.
Welcome back. So tonight, the D-Levy hangs in the balance, the so-called Doomsor levy, as has been christened, particularly by those in opposition. So the government has suspended the implementation of that particular 1 Ghana cedi per litre as they monitor the situation in the Middle East. By the way, the Middle East produces 1/3 of our oil. Let's talk to Duncan Amoah, Chamber for Petroleum Consumers. He's been advocating for a different approach to managing the sector. He's unhappy with the mounting debts. He doesn't like the fact that we keep introducing these levies, and he thinks the solution lies elsewhere. Duncan, thanks for joining us. I was with you during the tariff debate, and you were so frustrated with our politicians. Now, let's start off with the suspension of the implementation. As COPEC, does that make you happy that at least the government has not gone ahead to implement the levy yet? They're waiting to see what happens in the Middle East?
Bernard, what I can say, I just had Doomsor here, forgive me. And so if you realize my
wow.
Screen is gone off, Doomsor has just happened to me at the office.
Doomsor has found you.
Yeah, it just found me. It just found me as you were introducing the subject matter. Today is one of the days ECG nationwide decided to pursue their revenues by going out there to check on people that are consuming power. We cannot continue to have a country where just a few people pay for power, and because of the numbers that do not pay, we come back to the same few people who are already paying so much for power and say pay much more because we are not getting it. Our sector, that's it. You cannot continue on this trajectory where we would want to continue to have the factors of energy generation or production, and then transmission, supply, and then revenue generation, and say that government should be responsible for all of that. I do think that we should get to a point where even the IPPs, they should be able to set some tariffs that, of course, PURC can equally monitor, and then allow other private sector participating entities also to get in there and be sure to be able to get full cost recovery for whatever input same or getting it to various homes and for that matter industries also. So we should be moving away from a total government control or dominance of a power sector, such that that we continue. I am certain that just as we did for petroleum sector, where in July 2015, we decided that it was no longer feasible to continue with this subsidy program that government will say that whatever the differentials are, it would pay back to the suppliers. If we are able to get to a point where we are able to deregulate the power sector completely, Bernard, I do see us getting to maybe some 5 years from now where there's no longer being created. But until we get to the complete deregulation of the power sector, got quite a lot to do. The bit to do is to ensure that you don't continue to, as it were, import 1,000 containers without a track and tracing, in place. It means that you did not even need them, but you were just procuring them because probably somebody stood to benefit. You don't continue to have a situation that, and then will run bills of millions of Ghana cedis. Then they tell you the meter has gotten, bad or gone bad. And then we cannibalize the meters. We ask them to pay a flat fee somewhere. And then a debt would accrue because power has been consumed and wasn't paid for. You don't continue to leave ECG to behave as though there's too much money for them to do all the bad things that they shouldn't do. And then when there's a debt, we come back to petroleum. Bernard, in 2015, December 21st, we went to Parliament to ask Ghanaians for Energy Sector Levies Act. The argument then was that there was a debt of some 2.2 billion we needed to clear. So Ghanaians should help us to clear that debt. That debt included the BDC legacy debt. It also included the power sector debts. Unfortunately, 10 years down the line, from 2015 up to now, we've contributed almost 29 billion as Ghanaians. My light just came, Bernard. Thankfully, ECG has probably.
Okay, so on that basis, let me ask: when the minister was justifying this levy, he said they didn't want to move the burden to the power side because it would affect the automatic adjustment formula, and that the increase in tariff needed to deal with the debts plus pipe fuel would amount to over 50%. So is it your view that the power side should take more of the blame than the fuel side in this attempt to get the sector to be more efficient?
You see, Bernard, the fuel side as we speak does not leave a single peswa as a subsidy or, a debt overhang. It is completely deregulated. It is full cost recovery. So whatever you bring, you sell at full cost recovery plus your markup. And so the power sector is not an albatross on the neck of government. The petroleum sector. The power sector, however, we've continued to probably pamper that establishment, the power sector. So the debts are created. We do not ask how they came about. We do not seek to stop how they were created. We do not seek to make any effort whatsoever to say that probably from the start of July, whatever monies that ECG collects, the cash waterfall mechanism must kick in, use that money to pay for the power producers. If there are excesses that we've not been able to pay for, let us know so that if we need to go back to PURC to justify an upward adjustment in tariff, we can go back and do full cost recovery. But Bernard, even if you did full cost recovery and you still have transmission losses of over 30%, you are simply telling the Ghanaian that every 100 kilowatts you produce, you cannot be able to account for at least 30% of that 100 kilowatts, and that's 30 kilowatts. And that would leave some debt for you. And I am sure that, look, the government means well from where I sit. It wants to be able to handle the energy sector debt head on. I don't think that they mean bad to want to come to petrol to say that, let me take more taxes. But you cannot mean well and allow the factors that exist. If within a short period you are ramping up debts in billions, Bernard, and you are expecting 500 million from the new tax that you are collecting, it means that the entire year you will do a maximum 6 billion Ghana cedis, or about 600 million USD. Meanwhile, you are dealing with debts that run into billions. And we are not even sure that that debt, we are stopping the bleeding or the hemorrhaging. So we are back to the same squares. ESLA came in 2015, 2016, we started collecting. The excuse was that we needed to clear the debt. 9 years after collecting 29 billion, it has shown that the money solution doesn't exactly work until you do the hard fixes. And that is what we've been asking government to pay attention to all this while. Coming to collect 1 cedi, yes, we probably would say, okay, it's too bad, but we'll pay. But Bernard, beyond collecting the money, then what else? If we do not see the structural fixes, if we don't see ECG being stopped from operating 82 different accounts, Bernard, you and I wonder what exactly. I don't know if it is one Ghanaian, one bank account, or one account for ECG. I went off again, Bernard. I don't know how soon.
No, we can hear you. We can hear you. Keep going. Keep going.
Okay. So all that I'm saying, in essence, is that you will need to do the heavy lifting whilst looking at a way to get the financing also done. Don't let us put money ahead of the solutions that we will require in fixing the power sector. If we put the money ahead, as we did with the energy sector levies issue, we would simply come back another 10 years from now and ask Ghanaians to pay more taxes because we couldn't fix, what we need to fix. I entrust the current energy minister to do way better because he is that individual that probably has that wealth of experience. He's been a deputy power minister, subsequently became the power minister. He's been a ranking member of parliament on Mines and Energy Committee, Finance, and all of that. He should have seen these challenges and must, hit the ground running. I am quite certain that if he avails the mind completely towards, doing the heavier lifting, we will not put the money solution ahead of the structural fixes that we need to do, Bernard.
All right, finally.
The structural fixes for us any day, Bernard. The
where do you see the domestic situation? So this week, we're told that fuel prices are coming down, and in fact, did come down this week. In the morning, Bloomberg said that there was uncertainty in the global oil prices because of the conflict. But this evening, before we came on air, we are now being told that the prices fell as the conflict has not disrupted crude production, and Iran has privately expressed willingness to de-escalate hostilities with Israel. So what should petroleum consumers expect in the next month? Are you able to put all the equations together and tell us that from now till, say, July, prices will go down, will remain stable, or start going up? Are you able to say?
Bernard, what we are able to say now is that it's a function of demand and supply. The tensions in the Middle East effectively will cut out some 25% of the world supply. Don't forget, Iran is number 8 on the global index of countries that produce the most oil. You also have other countries within the Middle East that would depend on the Strait of Hormuz. Once you have those tensions and bombs are flying all over the place, it will not even be safe for cargo to be moving because you don't know when they will get trapped with any of these bombs. So 25% gets knocked off completely. Within just a matter of 24 hours, we saw crude prices go up by as much as $12. And crude goes up. It takes about 5 days to reflect on the prices of your petrol, your diesel, your kerosene, because those are like, as you would probably call them, the byproducts of your crude when you process or refine them. That 5 days would probably enter into the new window that we have gotten into. Mind you, before Israel and Iran, prices had declined. The cedi was still stable. And that is the effect we are seeing on, the second window for June. So it's gone down. But the effect of Iran-Israel will probably hit all of us the first window in July because, like I said, Crude clearly has gone up. So if you are buying crude to go and refine or process, and the cost of the base product is gone up, you would naturally pass that on with the finished product. So the first window, July, it is likely we would witness a little bit of an upward adjustment, give or take. I don't know how long Iran will sustain hostilities or Israel will sustain hostilities, but assuming they end today, Bernard, the full effect of what has been done the past few days would probably hit all of us the first window, July, though we cannot say for now how much that would be. But I think that is where the government decision to suspend the tax is in order, because you cannot even tell what is coming tomorrow. Crude prices, as we speak this evening, are still rising.
Well, I thought they were falling because I was checking Bloomberg today before I came on air, and they were saying that prices have started easing. What indication do you get from this current administration about bust and toll? Because in the morning when I spoke to your colleague, Nana Moisi, he said that the two critical institutions I'm looking for a word, to stabilize our energy sector on the fuel side is to get bust to do its work and to get toll to do its work. There's a new administration. You've been in meetings with them. Do you get any indication that bust and toll are being positioned to store bulk finished product and also to refine, in the case of toll, our petroleum produced here in Ghana?
Bernard, this is a very, interesting question. We have said time with our number that Ghana cannot continue to be on the fence, cannot continue to, just be price takers. Whatever happens, we'll pass it on to our people. In 1992-93, when we decided to set up BOST, the idea was to have a semblance of an Oklahoma cushioning in Ghana, where in America they are able to store crude for even up to 40 years. And so anytime there's pressure on their systems, then the government can come out to say, look, we are releasing this amount of product into the system to be able to balance or even out the pressures that you have as a result of geopolitical tensions. We do have BOST that ordinarily should be able to store strategic fuel for you and I, so that when prices have declined to, say, $500, $550 a metric from the $800 that it used to be at the start of the year, and it declines, you should see BOST with some reserve margin or strategic margin go out there to the market and be able to buy at $550, because you are not assured that throughout the year you would get, the price per metric ton at $550. So it calls for planning, strategic planning, or getting some reserve margin that allows them to go out there when prices come down and store products. That way, Bernard, if you wake up today and Iran decides that they will not even stop and prices continue to go up, what then happens is that BOST can step in for at least 2 months without allowing a single liter to be imported. And if they got it for 500 and prices jump to 700, it should be a lot easier without quantum physics to determine that at 550, if I sold it even for 600, I will still be cheaper on the market than importing directly due to the geopolitical, pressures. Unfortunately, we are not looking at BOST in that way. We are allowing BOST to behave as though it were a BDC. Meanwhile, BOST margin is still being collected from you and I when we buy petrol. So we are keeping BOST running, but the safety net that BOST should have provided for you and I, we are not encouraging them to do that. They are rather behaving as though they are a private BDC that would need to make profit. So in recent times, Bernard, the cliche for BOST has been, we've made so much profit. But fuel prices are going up. And for you as a buffer, if you are making profit, at whose expense are you making the profit? Again, you have refining space in Ghana that we should have taken advantage of since the 1960s, when Ghana's founding president decided that the country Ghana would at some point strike, crude. in commercial quantities.
So Duncan, I just want to. So I'm saying that, do you see from this government's posture that they are willing to get either institution to work? I understand where you are going and explain the background, but I just want to know clearly from what you've seen in the past 5 to 6 months. Do you have any hope that TOR will do its work? I want a quick answer.
Bernard, people have been assigned. Fantastic, people, brilliant people. I don't get the sense that the government is repositioning these institutions from where I sit.
Yet. Okay.
People have a job to do, but if government indeed wanted to even retool TOR, the tax that you and I are discussing today, you should have seen a component of it, go into revamp TOR, right?
Okay.
Because you
don't see.
But we are not saying
you
that.
Don't see. Yeah, I just wanted to get that from you. Thank you, Duncan. I'll take a short break and end with Theo Champon. We're still on the point of view tonight, trying to make sense of the suspension of the energy sector shortfall and debt repayment levy. Stay with us.
In a fast-growing urban environment like Accra, safety is as important as the air that we breathe. Hear the real stories from those who now feel safe like never before with Response One.
One night, I heard the glass shattering. Armed robbers had broken in. Before I could react, the alarm blared and the lights flashed, and Response One was already on their way. Within minutes, the security was at my door and the armed robbers had fled. I never want to be that scared again. And now I know with Response One, I never will.
Don't wait for tragedy to strike. Protect your home with Response One's monitored alarm system and our theft protection guarantee. Immediate response, real protection. Response One, stay connected, stay protected.
Remember who we are singing now. At risk of prostate enlargement. We remember or her 20 ebitiminya prostate cancer. 5 bitimi afamu nadia ubefamu.
Actually, this is not my fault.
And to wada, entina midi manichi Executive Prostate Center.
Executive Prostate Center is a unique medical center where we harmonize in-depth traditional medicine with cutting-edge science and technology to cure, to treat, and to prevent diseases like prostate enlargement, prostate cancer.
Executive Prostate Center. Madame home facilities no any professional medical care.
Sisi a bibia clear system ni. Ye nro ne so de natural. Into we koso afa ma ye.
Executive Prostate Center. My cured.
Welcome back. So we've been talking the D-Levy with the Deputy Minister for Energy, former Deputy Minister, and now we've spoken to Duncan Amma. Let me end with Theo Champon, who's an energy economist. Theo, I have 2 questions for you, and I have just 5 minutes, so I'm just going to give you the 2 in 10. Do you understand what the government is trying to do with the D-Levy? Permit me to use that. So that's question number 1. Do you understand this whole, we want to bring in 1 cedi per litre to pay for fuel and also to pay debts? And number 2, where do you see, how long will this suspension last on the basis of how you read the Middle East situation? Because this morning we're told that oil crude prices were going up. Now Bloomberg is telling us they are coming down slightly. I have no idea what to believe. So just box the 2 into one answer for me, Theo. Thank you.
So I'll try and do that. And good evening. I think the length of the suspension really depends on where crude oil prices go. At the moment, it's difficult to tell. I agree with you. I've had a look at the price numbers on the Bloomberg and Reuters and other terminals, and it's actually come down marginally from yesterday's figures off the back of some reports that there are some attempts at de-escalating the conflict between Iran and Israel. And the fact also that we may probably not see a full-blown war in that sense. And so some strategic moves are being made to try and get both sides to talk. So it's a bit difficult to tell really where things will go. But if you just look at where the market signals are going at the moment, it does indicate that there is some potential solution on the horizon when it comes to this conflict, and therefore crude oil prices may not go up as drastically as people are forecasting or expecting. But the jury is out in terms of how or where the chips will fall. What it means for Ghana, like others have said, really, and in the context of that new 1 cedi per liter levy that was actually introduced but now be scaled back, would mean that one, for me, I think the government was quite proactive in working out the mechanics and then realizing that the timing for implementing this levy, given what had happened with the conflict, was probably not right, because you really cannot tell where prices were going to go. But the important question, which I suppose a lot of people have asked, is, okay, if you even collected this money in the first instance, how sure are we that it's going to be used to address the energy sector issues? Because like Duncan was saying, we've been paying all sorts of levies as a people, going all the way back to, if you recall, the Tor recovery levy from the Kufuor days. And we've added on and on and on. But the problems within the energy sector, specifically the power sector, still persist. My reading of the situation indicates that it looks like the government seems keen to want to address this problem, but it has to be twofold. It's partly dealing with the legacy debt, but importantly, making sure that no new debt, or at least new debt that have been accrued, is minimized. And this is where some of the hard fixes on dealing with the losses at ECG, the potential partial privatization, and all the issues around the power sector value chain becomes really, really important going forward, so that it is not just throwing money at the problem, but we are actually fixing or addressing the problems once and for all. And that is really, I think, how I feel in terms of the assessment of the situation. The levy in and of itself partially solves the problem, but if you don't go ahead with the required structural fixes, we'll be back at the same challenge.
So we'll keep an eye on the situation and hope to talk to you as the situation evolves. Thank you so much, T.H.
Absolutely, thank you.
He's an energy economist and a political risk analyst. Earlier, we had Duncan Amoah from the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers. We spoke to Richard Jan Mensah, who is a member of parliament and also Deputy Minister for Energy, and then Collins Adomako Mensah, who is a member of parliament and the deputy ranking member on the Energy Committee. He was also a deputy minister at some point in the previous administration. So the fate of this levy is not clear, but what is clear is that today, the 16th of June, will not see it implemented. Let's see how the situation pans out, and we'll bring you more updates. Thanks for watching tonight's edition of The Point of View. My name is Bernard Able. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.